That was an excellent chat with Maggie. Now let's throw it to part two, where we have M.K Burgess, who covers the Packers as a sports reporter for WFRV or Channel 5 in Wisconsin. Welcome to part two of episode 54 of Underage Packers. I'm Joey, one of your co-hosts. As always, joining me is my other co-host, Big B. How you doing, Big B?
What is going on? Doing good.
Classic. I'm sure our audio listeners are always pretty confused when you do that, but at least you have that on, unlike previous episodes. But joining us today as our extra special guest is MK Burgess. How you doing, MK?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for coming on the show. Today we're going to be talking about, we talked about the playoffs as a whole, kind of a playoff preview with Maggie. But today with MK, we're going to be taking kind of a look back here on the Packers season and all of that. So let's just, before we talk about the team, you live in Wisconsin, you cover the Packers and kind of the atmosphere. How much has, without games, without fans allowed, how much has the atmosphere changed around Green Bay, Wisconsin, especially on game day?
Well, this is my first year in Wisconsin. I've only actually lived in Green Bay for about 6 months. So this is the only kind of game day atmosphere that I've experienced.
Yeah.
Which has just been weird. Anytime that you think of a game day experience, you think of rowdiness, of juice, as the team likes to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost been a ghost town.
Yeah.
Lambeau is impressive, and it's been really, really cool to get to see it for the first time, but it's almost like it's not real. This almost kind of feels like a fake season because there's not that fulfilling atmosphere like there usually is. And you hear the players talk about it. I mean, Rodgers has said all season that he's missed the fans. So it's just been very different. It almost kind of feels like Green Bay isn't really paying attention that there's a football season going on, because bars aren't packed on game day and things like that. But you can still tell that town loves the Packers.
Yeah. Man, you should look forward to whenever fans are back, because that place, I mean, especially being Big B, we have our parents there, but you get quite a few drunks there, quite a few alcoholics in the Green Bay parking lot. I haven't had quite the tailgate experience because I've been to a few games, but my dad is always, we got to get in the same stadium at like 7:00, so it's a 3:00 game, and when they're at noon, and they don't let you out into the parking lot once you entered. So I've always missed out on that experience. But Big B, have you ever been to a tailgate experience at Lambeau?
No, I have not, because you usually drive down there the day of.
Oh,
So
that's right. Yeah,
yeah.
you live
So
up
none
there.
of us have done a tailgate experience, is what we're saying. None of
Yeah.
us have really
We
experienced
don't.
it.
Yeah, we have to all go next year, though. That will be a great time. Hopefully they allow fans. Do you know any of this news that our good friend Corey Benke is reporting of Lambeau allowing around 10,000 fans?
We have not heard anything confirmed from the Packers. I've seen a few tweets like that on Twitter. I was actually investigating that this morning. But I have not heard anything yet from the Packers. Of course, as soon as they release word, we will let everybody know that. But as of right now, that's unconfirmed on our end. We are, and of course, the Packers aren't going to tell anybody anything until they want to let it known. But Corey Banky's got an inside source. I don't know. That might be that's something to look into. I mean, they did have Matt LaFleur on their show the other day.
Who knows? It was interesting to hear Corey Benke report, and his twist. Anytime you have Corey Benke reporting on Twitter, it's a pretty odd day on Twitter, and that it was yesterday.
Twitter is the day yesterday as a whole was just odd. But we have to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
It will be interesting. I know Sean Payton and the Saints were talking about having 50,000 people kind of in a bubble, which would be very interesting for Green Bay. I don't know if 10,000 Wisconsin residents could handle each other for 14 days.
I don't know.
I mean, I would maybe.
There's a lot of beer involved, maybe.
Yeah, if you give them 20 packs of spotted cows, that should last them for a few days. I don't know if I would be able to stay that long just to go to a game. Big B's been to a playoff game though, but
I think I would sit for 2 weeks to get to go to a playoff game.
It would, I guess, if you're in your home and not like
I think I would sit for a week in a hotel.
I would sit on Lambeau Field for 2 weeks without a bed to go to a playoff game, maybe.
Word.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I wouldn't camp out in the middle of the elements. I'm sorry, that place is cold.
Yeah, maybe if they had a dome around it, maybe. But
you have like a heated ice fishing tent. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Find somewhere in the atrium, but even there it's cold. All right, let's get to some actual Packers talk though. The Packers 13-3 2 seasons in a row. The big playoff run coming up. So I think let's talk about this because it's a question I asked Maggie yesterday that last year, and maybe you're looking at this from not as much as a fan perspective as me and Big B look at it, but last year I said if the Packers win the divisional round and play a competitive game in the NFC Championship game, I will look back at the season pretty proud because of how a rookie head coach came in here, how well he did, and the circumstances surrounding it. But now I'm feeling a little bit different. I don't think you're getting any better level of play out of Aaron Rodgers. I don't think with all these upcoming contracts you have, I think you have to win a Super Bowl for this season to be worth it. Not necessarily that it's going to be looked back as a waste. But what would you say the Packers need to do in this postseason to make it truly a season to remember?
Oh, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. I think for Rodgers and that whole team, this season will not mean as much if they do not get the Super Bowl. Now, I disagree with you slightly. I think you can't look back on what this team did and not be proud of it. I mean, they threw more touchdowns than they punted the ball. Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers shattered multiple franchise records.
Yeah.
Davante missed 2 games. This season is going to be a season to remember because it was so odd and what that offense was able to do. Mm-hmm. Players and pieces that you would not define as stars. No one thought Robert Tonyan was going to have 11 touchdowns this year.
That's true.
Be real. I didn't even know his name coming into this season, other than the fact that he had worked out with George Kittle over the summer and had the same man bun that they had going on. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows Davante Adams. He's been coming on for forever. And Aaron Jones, after leading the league in touchdowns last season, was expected to do a lot.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is good. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is more than good. Aaron Rodgers is great.
Yeah.
But no one expected, or I don't know if we all expected him at 37 to play as he did back in 2011 or 2014. I mean, this is pre all those injuries, Rodgers. Mm-hmm. And that I think you cannot deny that if they don't win a Super Bowl, this season is going to feel like a giant hurt. It's going to feel like, okay, we did all of this and then we didn't get the ultimate prize, but this season was also magical in a way that you saw a bunch of teams come together and put on some spectacular shows in a year that a lot of people hated. And so I think that's something you can't take away, but you also have to just kind of look at all the fantastic things that Rodgers and them did. I mean, Dominique Daphne caught a touchdown. No one expected that at all.
Yeah.
Robert Tonyan has 11 touchdowns on the year. Davante Adams missed 2 games and has a league-leading 18 receiving touchdowns. Rodgers shattered his own record that he set back in 2011.
Yep. With 45,
with 48 touchdowns. And then if you add the 3 rushing touchdowns he had, he has 51. 51. I can't do math. So yes, the ultimate, it is going to feel like they missed the mark if they don't come away with the Lombardi trophy. But you also have to look back and, okay, 2 years in a row with a new head coach and you go 13-3 and you didn't pick up a wide receiver and you basically drafted Rodgers' replacement. Okay. I'm not going to you can't be upset about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of talks. I'm so excited for the offseason. Not that I want the season to end, but the Jordan Love pick and just the draft will have a lot more to talk about this season. But Big B, I talked about this a few weeks ago after the Titans game. I said after that game, I will look back at that game and I think I will say to myself after 5 years, I will look back at that game and will say that's the moment where I knew they could do it. Was there a moment earlier in the season, maybe just to play a response to adversity, where you thought the Packers, you knew in your mind, maybe they won't, but the Packers have a really good chance of winning the Super Bowl this year?
I mean, you have to say the Titans game because everybody was bitching about Derrick Henry trying to stop him for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
We come out and we stop him. Pretty much stop him for Derrick Henry.
Yeah. I think
not factor in the snow with that game though.
Oh yeah. And I think that's going to be the big thing because you do have to factor in the weather, like you mentioned. But the Packers' next 2 games are at Lambeau Field, which will hopefully have snow. So
yeah, I would agree with that. If I think back and look on the season, a moment where I thought that team could probably win the Super Bowl, I would have to say how they played in the first half against the Colts. I was like, awesome. Okay. Yeah. You lose to the Bucks, who are a really good complete team. Then you beat 2 bad teams. And then you go on the road to Indy and you look that awesome. And then, but that's the thing about the team this year is then you get to the third quarter and I don't know what it is about the third quarter with them, but for whatever reason, they just fall apart. Mm-hmm. So the Titans game is the most complete game you've seen them play. And I mean, everyone talked about that, from Rodgers to Adrian Amos to LaFleur to Devontae. Everyone talked about how that was just the most complete game. And you held a man who rushed for 2,000 yards this season to under 100 and no touchdowns. So I think this team can win the Super Bowl, but you have to see them play like they did against the Titans. And like they did the first 3 quarters against Minnesota, the first game of the season.
Yeah.
But you cannot allow anybody to get garbage time touchdowns like they did the first half of the season. The good thing about the first half of the season was that they scored so much that it didn't matter if you scored 2 touchdowns at the end of the fourth quarter because Rodgers had already given you basically 40 points. Mm-hmm. So it didn't matter.
Yeah. And that's like that, the Indy game, and like you mentioned, the third quarter, that's the scariest thing because what happened, in Indy in a lot of these games, you might have a bad third quarter like Carolina. That happened, they still come out with a win. You aren't going to be able to do that against playoff teams. So you're going to have to play
playoff players, maybe.
Yeah. And with Indy, you got to have the offense rolling on all sides. And the fact that they still had a chance to win that game, that it went into overtime. I mean, the Rodgers throw to MVS was incredible. But the fact that they were if they decide to go for it instead of the field goal on that last play in regulation, if MVS doesn't fumble it, we won't get into that heavy horse right there. But, a lot, the fact that they still could have won that game shows a lot. And I think specifically with that Titans game, the biggest thing for me was they've so many times this season when a team was able to put some points on the board, when it was 19-14, that was the moment in so many previous games where they've crumbled. But they responded with a drive that some might say wasn't a 50-yard run by Aaron Jones. I say it is because the refs didn't rule it that way. And then an incredible catch by Devontae Adams right there. And that was a very strong moment for this team. And I think that will be a great moment of adversity. Some adversity they've had to face this past week was in an injury to the starting left tackle, David Bakhtiari. Now, the way I look at this, especially, Packers Twitter is pretty they like their overreactions. The season is over after David Bakhtiari gets hurt, but I thought the season was over after week 5. So I'm not sure where exactly the season ended. But MK, looking at this David Bakhtiari injury, how much do you think this team can use it as much as a benefit as possible? Because, Devontae Adams, he was talking on Chris Collinsworth podcast the other day that David He said to him, just go and win a Super Bowl. Do that for me. How much do you think they can use this as adversity and do it for a brother?
Here's why I'm not particularly worried about that is because the Packers offensive line has not had a consistent starting five the entire season. You lost Lane Taylor. You had Billy Wagner injured in the beginning of the year. Then you had Rick Wagner go down. Then you had Corey Linsley go out. Bakhtiari missed a couple games with some broken ribs. And yet that unit has been the most consistent unit of the entire team all season. Rodgers has had 2 games where he's been sacked more than twice. And so, yes, if you asked Aaron Rodgers the day he found out, I think it was the Friday before the Bears game, he was talking about still being in the grieving process. And it is heartbreaking. I mean, the man has been your left tackle for 7 seasons. He has valiantly protected you, made sure that no one's gotten to you. He's been your dude. He's probably his best friend on the team. I mean, they make fun of each other for not giving each other Christmas presents all year, blah, blah, blah. But that next man up mentality is so strong, especially in the offensive line. And the other reason I'm not worried about it is because Billy Turner and Elton Jenkins can play wherever they ask them to play. So when everyone was like, oh, I'm surprised Turner's over at left tackle, I'm like, I'm not at all. He is to be honest, that's who I would want there. Billy Turner is a big, imposing man, and I'm not trying to move towards him to get to Aaron Rodgers. I would have him there. And the other thing is when you've moved Rick Wagner over there, he's been a little bit shakier on the left side. He's more suited to be sitting over there at right tackle. Corey Linsley, the other big thing is, if you don't have Corey Linsley back and you're down David Bakhtiari, it's totally different mindset because then you have rookie John Runyon Jr. in there. And that's I'm not saying Elton Jenkins can't do center. He's already proven that he can. But to have 2 of your offensive lineman leaders out is a big deal. The fact that you have Corey Linsley in there as center, kind of facilitating that whole line and whatnot, I think they do use it as motivation. I think, David Bakhtiari just got that deal that makes him the highest paid lineman in the history of the NFL. So the season's not over. Is it a blow? Yes. Especially, if they end up having to play the Bucs. Yeah, that's going to be a big deal. I mean, Bucs front 7 are nasty and they're fast, and the Packers got chewed up and spit out the last time they played them, and Bakhtiari was in the game. So it'll be intriguing.
Yeah, I love what you mentioned about all the, the Packers offensive line is one of the most versatile in the league, at least as I've witnessed as a Packers fan in my plenty of years so far. But, you have John Runyon who is in my mind specifically drafted for his versatility at Michigan, can play offensive guard, center, and will probably get more involvement in the years to come. But Elton Jenkins, who can play all 5 positions. So, I think a lot of people forgot that not every NFC team has a David Bakhtiari on this team. I still think even without Bakhtiari, this is a top-end offensive line here. Big B, how confident? I mean, we talked about it last week when David went down, looking specifically at all these teams. I resort to going into Madden and playing every team just to see how Billy Turner holds up. But is there, looking at it now, what do you think is the game plan? Because even with David Bakhtiari, like MK mentioned, we struggled against Jason Pierre-Paul, Devin White, all their fast linebackers. Against the Buccaneers, how do you solve that? Luckily, you're not our offensive line coach. Thank God for Adam Sinovich. But what are you doing? Is it moving Jamal Williams to that left side? Is it more involvement with Dominic Daphne, moving Mercedes Lewis? What are you looking for the Packers to do if they do end up having to play Tampa Bay without Bakhtiari?
Well, I mean, you gave me the option to mention Jamal Williams. So let's just roll Jamal Williams out there.
Yeah, what Jamal adds in pass protection cannot go unmentioned. And yeah, I mean, we got plenty of options there, even without rolling out a tight end. You have a great running back pass protector. So as far as this offensive line goes, I'm not too worried. I don't think it's going to lose us games. And Aaron Rodgers is playing best football we've seen from him. I mean, you saw plenty of times when Billy Turner struggled against one of the best defensive lines last week. Aaron Rodgers, I look at that 3rd and 9, he is able to get it to Aaron Jones, and it's not a worry. Let's talk about another big move that happened in the middle of the week last week. It's bye week, so let's have some time to reset and relax. Damon Snacks Harrison coming to the team. Now, you've been here for only a year, MK, but in that time, ever since probably the draft, when they didn't draft a defense lineman, which was like, you got the pedal stool. Number 1, we didn't draft a wide receiver. Number 2, we didn't draft an interior defense lineman. And number 3, Jordan Love sucks. That was pretty much the pedal stool of complaints.
He just played a down of football. You guys already decide he's not good.
We here at Underage Packers are probably the biggest defenders of Jordan Love right here. The Twitter world, probably our audience, might share that sentiment of Jordan Love sucks, but they signed Damon Snacks Harrison here in the past few weeks, which has been a large fan base has been wanting a lot here ever since March and April. So I guess, it can't be stated enough that, how much he adds to that defense line, how much Mike Pettin can use him. But as a leader, what do you think Snacks can add to this young defense here?
I just think that he adds that little bit of veteran presence. I think that's the reason you brought in Christian Kirksey. And then obviously you've got the Smith brothers on there as well. But I just think another man that's like been in the trenches of the NFL football and has seen it. I mean, you saw what he did with the Giants. He was an absolute beast.
Yeah.
So for someone who has played the game that consistently for that long to then come in as they're making a playoff push, as long as he's in shape, which I believe he should be, then, I think he's just gonna add that little bit of calmness, of maybe a little bit more juice to the D chain. Although I don't know that the defensive unit needs any more juice, because I think they'll do that themselves. I think they're the most juiced up, excitable group on that team. So I just think he's just going to add another veteran voice, and you can't. I also don't think that he's got the ego, and that's the one thing that's very interesting about the Packers is nobody's a diva. If you've noticed, everybody there is about themselves or about each other. Not, like, they're not about themselves. They're about each other. They're about, Devontae talked about it on Sunday after the game. He said, look, first half, I wasn't getting the ball, but I just wanted to do what I needed to do to make sure the offense was rolling, and the offense was rolling, and I was being a decoy, and it was fine. Second half, not so much. So the coaches were like, yeah, we need to get Devontae the ball so that we can, do things on offense. But that's just how everyone wants to score. Like, everyone wants to do anything to help the team. It doesn't matter who's scoring touchdowns, who's doing what. It's just that everybody wants to play together as a family, to be super cliche and use the one sports term that I absolutely hate. But that's what they are. And so I think that's what Snacks is going to bring, is he's an added buffer on a team that the unit that is excelling most when you need it to is the Packers defense.
God, I love that. Even Devontae Adams isn't a part of the game plan sometimes. MVS went 3 or 4 weeks without a single reception, 1 or 2 targets. And, he has a big play in Chicago. So, there's no, and they've mentioned that a lot. This is a team. They play together. They want to succeed. They don't care about stats. And in the end, their stats, I care about their stats because I always, so I can brag in Instagram comments, but they've added the stats. They have the team that can play together. And I love what Snacks adds as a leadership. I mean, that the 2010 team was full of that. They weren't on paper, they might have not been the best team when they won the Super Bowl, but they had Charles Woodson, they had Donald Driver, they had Greg Jennings, they had all those veteran pieces that were enough to lead this team. And you look at now, they have Mercedes Lewis, they have Aaron Rodgers, who is 11 years older than he was in 2010. So I think
way to age him. Dang.
man, it's Aaron, good buddy, friend of the show, Aaron Rodgers, by
Yeah,
the way.
buddy.
But
Here's the thing about this team, though. You mentioned MBS not getting a lot of targets, especially after that Colts game. But look at what he was still doing on the field. And the biggest reflection of that is the 77-yard touchdown run by Aaron Jones against the Eagles. MVS is down there blocking for him. He is running side by side, making sure that nobody is getting to him. And then the other great thing was then David Bakhtiari motoring down the field to also make blocks. But that was what was great is Mercedes Lewis is one of the best run blockers and pass blockers that's not an offensive lineman in the game. Andy Herman made that mention yesterday on GBN, and it was he's right. That's what's great about this team is you have everybody doing everything cohesively. So if guys aren't getting targets, yeah, I'm sure that's awful as a wide receiver to not get targets, but to know that you are still such an important part of this team and are such a playmaker in a way that goes unnoticed. Matt LaFleur talks about that with Alan Lazard all the time, about how he's doing things in the trenches that doesn't necessarily get on the stat sheet, where he's making huge blocks for people to get down there, or he's out muscling guys so that, Jamal or Aaron or, AJ Dillon needs to break open. That's what this team is about. And I think that's what can't be taken away is this is a team that had so many bit players that at any given moment, anybody could be a breakout star. And I think that's what's so fun to watch about is that you have so many different guys that have been breakout stars. Falcons game, it was Tunyon. Saints game, it was Lazard. 5 other games, it was Devontae. So that's what's been super interesting and really fun to watch is, yeah, okay, we didn't draft a wide receiver, and everyone was upset about that. Aaron Rodgers didn't need one.
Word. Big B, I asked Aaron Nagler, and I think I asked you about this before the week 1 game, the biggest improvement on this Packers team. Now that we've had a season, now that we're not just looking at a initial 53 roster, watching them play, what would you say is the biggest improvement from 2019 to 2020?
The efficiency on offense.
I mean, there is not a single time when this offense has the ball where I don't think they're going to score. And sometimes that proves to not work in my favor. Sometimes, most times it does so. You did mention Andy Herman. I forgot you had that little segment with him. Do you in the news company, do you take any responsibility for Andy's absurd food takes?
Oh, no. No.
Exactly.
No.
I mean,
not take any responsibility for his absurd food takes. We often argue about food takes on Green Bay Nation. But to be honest, I try to incorporate food tweets in that segment just so I can see what kind of nonsense he'll talk about.
Oh man.
But then usually Marcus backs him up as well. Neither one of them like tomatoes, and I don't know what to do with either one of them on that. Or that Andy eats pizza on Thanksgiving, which I'm okay.
Andy had to ruin Thanksgiving. I mean, my dad is a big fan of Andy Herman. He's a big fan of a lot. He makes sure when I tell him I have this guy, he'll either tell me I hate his stuff or I love their stuff. So, but my daddy said Andy needs to step it up on his food takes as well. So Andy, we're talking to him next week. We'll definitely have to confront him again on that.
Yeah, you'll have to do that. He is one of the smartest individuals about the Packers I've ever met. He's like a Packers encyclopedia. So having him on the show is it's so much fun. Him and Marcus are just hilarious. And, then when I inevitably pronounce someone's name wrong, they make fun of me. So
the thing I admire most about Andy is the fact, just his patience. I mean, the man, I don't understand, me and my dad we watch a live broadcast of the game, and then maybe we'll rewatch the TV broadcast again. But this man, I mean, he grades every single snap. I don't know how you have the time for that. Andy Herman, what a legend.
Slow clap for him.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're gonna end it off here. Big B, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Jamal Williams is the GOAT.
That's a great way to.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
Man,
Yes.
you have not met Big B. If you, I mean,
Yeah.
Big B, great Jamal Williams fan. Thanks so much, MK, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
No problem. I hope we don't ruin any of your future relationships in Packers media by associating you with our show. But, you know, we got Wes Hockowitz on, so I think you're safe.
I think I'm safe as well.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Where can people find you on Twitter if they're not familiar with you on their TV channel?
You can find me at MK_Burgess.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Go Pack Go.